Hello YouTube. Today I am producing a live play video where I'm six tabling PLO 25 and 10, and just going to take a look at some of the spots that come up. Hopefully get into some interesting situations. So on table 5, I raise ace ace 8-5 with 3 diamonds out of the small blind, and with 5 or 6 SPR on the flop. My plan was to check give up. On the turn, now it's looking like aces might be the best hand. My opponents are loose, so they could have turned 2 pair, getting 6-1. I am going to proceed here and catch a very good river. So not really any choice except to value bet it, and conceivably I could fold to a river raise. Very likely if my opponent, who is rather loose passive, makes a pot-sized river raise, that he would have the nuts. It's been an okay session so far. I think I'm about even. So you can see I'm playing 6 tables across 2 different sites. I'm on the Ignition/Bodog network and the Chico network here. So Bodog/Ignition, you can only play 4 tables at a maximum. So if you do want to play more tables, then it can be a good idea to add in either the winning network, ACR, America's Card Room, Yeah Poker, whatever, or the Chico network if you are American. Of course, the rest of the world can just play at PokerStars. So table 2, great spot to raise here in the cutoff with a strong hand after a loose player limps in. Just raising for value. This guy can stand to have a lot of pretty weak hands. So we get to the flop, and I've got the second nut flush draw. It's 5-way. Jacks. I've got some chances to make 3 of a kind. And I'm going to check. I'm close enough to the button here. There's a good chance that I do get a free card. So when this player leads out 5 ways, I'm just going to fold here. Pretty decent hand, ace king 10-10, but I'm under the gun in a full ring game. So most likely he's got like a strong made hand. Ace king, could have flopped a set. I'm going to fold to this bet because my flush draw is non-nut, so there are some reverse implied odds there. I've only got 3 nut outs, and there's another player here who could still raise or call behind me with the nut flush draw. So I'm just going to fold to this bet. You do want to be very careful in pot limit Omaha about drawing to non-nut hands. And good spot to raise here. King, queen, 10, 9, 1 suit. Decent hand. And I flop pretty marginal here. Top pair and a gut shot, but it's heads up. So my opponent's hand, I think this is the worst hand I would bet for value here on the right, because my opponent's a reg, so he's just not going to pay off white very often. And I'm going to keep betting here. I turn 2 pair. And my opponent min raises. So I'm getting 4 to 1 on a call, and I've got probably at least 7 outs. So there's we know 8 cards. So that means there's 44 remaining, and so it's 7 to 37. Need about 5 to 1. So I'm getting just under 5 to 1. But I also think that queen 10 is often good here. That he's got like 8, 10 or something, and doing like a free showdown raise. But when he continues with the river pot, now I'm thinking that he did have jack 9 on the turn, and he raised so small to keep me in, with the intent of going for a lot of value on the river. So I'm just gonna flat here on table 1. Oh no, and he was bluffing. So nice hand, well played, I guess. And the opponent was quite aggressive earlier, so maybe that was a clue. So my intent with this king, king, ace, 8 hand is to fold to a 4-bet. And I'm just going to check back on the flop here. There's a decent chance that one of them has the jack, just combinatorically. There's 8 cards. So you've got a 5% chance or 95% chance against to the 8th power. It becomes something like there's like a 30% chance. Really good odds here, 6 to 1. Once he gets raised behind, I'm done with the hand. So good spot on table 6 to isolation raise here. The button and decent hand, and I flop the nut flush draw. So obviously I'm going to bet the flop. They're checking to me, and the question is, do I use like a half pot sizing or larger sizing? I mean, they're very loose, so I'm going to just go for the larger sizing and hope to extract a lot of value. I think it is a good spot to bet, like half pot or even third pot, and basically go for them calling multiple streets. Gin flop here, table 4, 10's full, and just want to build as large a pot as quickly as possible before my opponent finds out that I have him beat. And hopefully he filled up, and presumably he's got the 8, but I guess he didn't. So yeah, hopefully it's going to be an interesting session. and get into some cool spots, interesting decisions. Pretty good tables. I mean, so ace 8 6 5 nut suit. Yeah, that's an okay hand, but I don't want to play too loose from middle position. So I'm just going to fold it. If I was going to play, I'd probably go with an overlimp. And it's tempting to call here on table 5. You know, it's only a min raise. But with the door open for 2 players, I'm not going to defend my blind with such a weak hand. You should defend your blinds pretty liberally against a min raise in PLO, even with hands as junky as ace queen 10 deuce rainbow, just because the pot odds are so great, and equities run close together even when you have a pretty weak hand. But when the door is open for other players, it's a different situation. So then you have to take into account the fact that they could, limp re-raise and cutting down your effective odds. So you'll note that on table 3, I'm short stacking here. I've only got 40 big blinds, and table 5, obviously, ultra premium rate aces, great spot to raise. And I do adjust my stack size, based on the profiles of the players. So this is not a great game. Does not seem to be a great game. So here with only not a great flop, but with only SVR of less than 1, this guy's basically all in already. I do have a gut shot. I'm just going to go with it, and I lose. So it'll be so when I'm in a not a great game, actually I'm probably just going to quit this game. It's so not good. Then I'm less inclined to top up to add on. I don't want to risk as much money in a marginal game. So I say this is a marginal game. Why? Well, this guy, playing 23-16, probably a pretty strong player, and I've got over 1,000 hands on him, break even. But this guy playing 13-0 over 8 hands, probably a tight guy. 42-11, maybe slightly too loose. And this guy, 49-7, obviously not a great style of play. Actually, he's slightly winning over 400 hands. So he's making some small mistakes, and that's the best you get there. The guy that's playing a little too loose. So it's just not a profitable game. And so I do color code my opponents to make it easier to select between games. When you have a lot on the go, when you're playing 4 or 5 tables. Yellow means fish. Usually somebody who's too loose. Green means whale, somebody who's way too loose. And then red is sort of a catch-all for regular, running the gambit of this guy's sort of tight passive, bordering on loose passive. 38-4, probably if you were playing Hold'em, this would be somebody you'd get excited about. But in Omaha, it's just there's so many more players that are like this guy, 70-0. That's where your real money is made. So Queen 10 here. least the problems are solved on the river. I just give up to any actions. Perhaps the worst card in the deck. And here, this is a decent game. You know, this guy's pretty deep, so I am gonna rebuy to cover him. So I 3-bet pre table 5 here with aces, and 3 SPR on this board text is really nothing to do but check, give up. And this is not a bad turn card, aces up. I'm still pretty much done with the hand. It's just a flop texture that smashes my opponent's range. And I'm going to defend here. And if I do have him beat, you know, maybe we can just check it down and go to showdown anyway, right? So. I like to play 6 tables at the same time. I find that's a healthy medium between volume and still allowing you to focus on what's going on, adapting to your opponents, and having time to think about your decisions, and hopefully making the right decision. Since the new Bodog changes, I find you have to, in order to game select, you have to leave and join new games more often. And decent hand here, 8-8 Queen Jack, nice connectivity, but under the gun. So I'm going to take a pretty conservative approach in this position. And I have a methodology for choosing heads-up games, which is if my opponent buys in for 100 big blinds, I just assume they're a reg and I won't even play them. Whereas if they buy in for any other amount, then I will try out the game. So we'll see here how accurate this methodology is in predicting that this guy is a fish and this guy is a reg. So Jack 10, flop the nuts. Obviously not interested in continuing with the hand. Once the diamond shows up on the turn, I do have the dry ace, but it would be an exercise in futility in trying to convince either of these guys to ever fold a flush. So aces in the small blind on table 3, very clear. 3-bet here. And I'm going to get in the pot here, the small blind, table 5. Got an okay hand. Multi-way action. And another thing I like to do on Bodog here, or ignition as some people call it, is sure ace 3 is good here. against this size bet on the turn after the flop gets checked around. Maybe I should raise. Going to check for the room. But another thing I like to do on Bodog is when I get all in, especially if my opponent's live or heaven forbid ahead, is rebuy right as soon as the money gets in, because often I'm thinking about topping up anyway, and especially most people rebuy when they lose. I actually prefer to add on when I win, because ceteris paribus, winning means that you're playing well, your opponents are playing poorly. I mean, obviously, it doesn't guarantee that, but it. I'll play 7 tables, so doesn't guarantee that, but sort of indicates that there's some loose correlation there. So I don't semi-bluff that much against loose opponents. Obviously, pretty strong hand here, and semi-bluffing should be considered. But the problem is these guys just don't fold, marginal hands that are competitive against you. So often better to just check call, even with this pretty nice draw. And obviously, once the turn pairs the board, I'm not really interested. Continuing, could so easily be drawing dead. So in this hand, I isolate a loose limper and I flop just a gut shot, backdoor flush draws. I think a clear spot to just check behind. Pretty much done with the hand. Great turn. And I don't semi-bluff as much in position. I don't semi-bluff loose players. He looks like he could be a loose player. So I am just going to check back here, try to make my hand. And probably I would just call if he bet, especially if he pots it. He pots it. I'm not even really loving my situation that much. I'm going to bet myself for value. And so the question is, what is a good bet sizing here? And you could have maybe a 9 high straight and be paying off any amount. I think it's unlikely that he's got a set or 2 pair. So I'm just going to go for max value. Hope that he has a 9 high straight. In general, when you're on the river and you have an unbeatable hand or an almost unbeatable hand against a loose opponent, it is a good idea to size your bets upwards. Because the question is, are you more likely to get a call, or how much more likely are you to get a call at half pot as opposed to full pot, right? And generally you're not that much more likely to get a call at half pot to justify the smaller sizing of a smaller bet. So so generally when you're on the river and you do have a really strong hand against a loose player, you should just try to go for max value. So small sample size, but it does look like players 3 and 5 here might be looser players. So top up for max. Also, I'm a little more aggressive about. I'm playing 25 and 10 right now, so I'm a little more aggressive about topping up in a 10 game than I am in a 25 game. So this really loose passive player, min. Oh no, he cold calls this guy min 3 bets. Just gonna call it. Folding here because this guy's just never raising pre-flop, and my hand might not be that good against a guy who raises so infrequently. I'm obviously just going to check this hand in the big blind. I mean, especially against a field of players, you shouldn't raise too frequently out of the big blind. Although sometimes, especially against like a loose single loose limper, then you can raise good value hands. But you do want to be careful, if you're playing out of position. Looks like player 2 here 4-bet. One money going in here pre-flop. You got to think that this guy's got aces. Keep raising it. No way I'll follow the flop. Where's the side pot anyway? I think this may be slightly too loose. The 6 is really dangling here. There's a 3-card jab connection, so can't really make a straight with 10-6. 9-8-7 would already be a straight with Jack-10. So maybe if I was over in the cutoff, I could play this hand despite the dangler. But you do want to keep your under the gun ranges pretty tight. Otherwise, you just end up in too many situations out of position with the worst hand and just not really in good shape. So, tempted to call here. Well, not after the raise, but I mean before the raise. This player is pretty aggressive, so I don't want to complete too liberally with a hand that can't stand a raise at any rate. Aces, table 6, and just gonna flat, basically praying that player 2 puts his last $1.70 in. It's a little bit too passive, but it's just a situation where they just put the money in so frequently, and then hopefully this guy tries to re-isolation raise him. But if he flats, still a good spot. It's less than a full stack, so getting a decent amount in pre, and now 1 SPR on a really bad board. And a significant amount of money in the side pot, I think, is a factor in this decision. Down. There's only $5 in the main pot, $10 in the side pot. So, one of the reasons why you're pushing on boards like that is just to take it down. There's so much money out there. So kings here, I raise out of the small blind against a pretty loose button limper. After everybody checks the flop, you know, you think they're going to bet 6x. I'm actually going to go for thin value here. This guy's made some really absurd calls. So I saw him make some calls earlier with hands that just had no relation to the board whatsoever. Yeah, you're Queen 5. Nice draw on the turn, but it's pretty thin bet there, especially having a queen myself. And against a guy who you know, bluffed too much, that it'd be a great spot to maybe check call. 3 is not really, it's not too many. You could have 3, 4, 5 or something, 3, 4, 5, 7. This guy min 3 bets me. And I think I might go for a value 4 bet. Decent hand, playability, high card strength. Yeah. I'm gonna make a sneaky little check here with my flopped full house. Set the trap. Hopefully the king of clubs doesn't come. That would be kind of sick. I don't see too much point with betting there with Queen Jack. Just to give him a chance with air or draws, or you know, if he has a hand himself, you know, he might push. So I don't think there's too much danger in giving a free card anyway. You do want to be careful about slow playing, obviously. So there were some considerations there that made slow playing a good idea. You know, I have an almost unbeatable hand, and there's a lot of draws on that board, so my opponent can make like a straight or a flush, and then he probably can't fold it with one SPR. One reason why slow playing was not a good idea in that situation was the pot was so large, you know, SPR situation of 1, so you don't want to slow play as much in low SPR situations and situations where the pot is big. You know, he probably would have called with that draw if I had bet. He had a pretty nice draw, right? Not flush drawn and gut shot, so you can't expect me, obviously, to flop so big. I guess I'll call here, table 6 in position. You know, I'm really targeting like an overcall from 3, and then just being able to play out in position 15, 13 SPR, you know, with this guy. I'm not really too enthused about taking on the short stack with this hand, because it is really an implied odds hand, and most of the time you're going to flop air like this, and every once in a while you flop like a really gin holding. But I am pretty excited about playing deep with this guy who's looking sort of loose passive, probably the type to make some post flop mistakes. Pretty good spot here to flat, Queen 10, 8, 9. In position, a lot of money left to be bet. Small blind, probably calling very wide. Maybe I could have, probably should have, especially you see the flop, probably should have raised these jacks here, blind on blind. And my opponent check raises me, so obviously I'm going to repot him. Would not be surprised to see him with a set. I could have maybe a wrap or 2 pair. See, hopefully he keeps raising. All the money goes in. Oh, should have bet this. Probably if the river comes bad and he pots into me, I'll have to fold like a Queen 10, 9, 7. There's just no way he turns a set into a bluff on the river. Impossible. since he check raised me, I'm thinking, you know, he's more likely to have something like 3/8 or 3/4, maybe Jack 8 even. Could have a wrap though. Maybe it's something like kings. Here, pretty decent draw out of position against a loose passive player. And because my opponent's so loose, I'm not going to semi-bluff with it. So check. I'm going to fold here. So I'm getting 2-1, but my clubs are not nut. So I've really only got 3 nut outs. And, you know, you just want to be very careful about drawing to non-nut draws in Omaha. Most likely my opponent does not have a nut flush, very unlikely, but it could be, and I'm not really getting the right price to call on my draw anyway, like assuming all my clubs are good, which it's not really a reasonable assumption. You know, 10 outs, right? There's 40. We know 8 cards. There's 44. So it's 3.5 to 1. I'm getting 2 to 1. You know, against, but also the 8 and 9 of clubs pair the board, right? So if he had a set, I mean, he's probably got a straight with his line, and all of my outs are good, right? But even still, I'm not getting the right price. But if he's got, or he could have 2 pair with the straight, or you know, like a straight with the nut flush draw, and you know, out of position. So you have to discount. You have to discount your outs, your non-nut outs. You know, especially the 8 or 9 of clubs that pair the board, that complete full houses, and the ace high flush is possible. And I'm not getting the right price anyway. So, and I'm out of position, so you want to call a little more liberally in position. Similar situation here. You know, obviously river value bet with the 3rd nuts, Jack high flush draw, folding immediately to a raise from other player. Might fake tank and then fold. Don't want them to. Want them to, you know, you gotta. The fake tank metagames are crucial, by the way. You know, you got like the nuts in the river, and you get a value bet it. You got a tank for like 15 seconds. Yeah, so I think you have like a tough decision. So bottom 2, and just gonna check here, 5-way, and just so few favorable turns for my hand aside from like a deuce, an ace, or a 5. And fold. Flop a set here. And trips on table 6. Your value bets in both situations. Betting with the intent of folding to a raise on table 4. No such luck. Value bet my quads here, table 6. Full pot sizing. He's only calling with a pocket pair. He's probably always calling with a pocket pair. So that's my sizing. It's not going to put me on quads, obviously. I'm just going to make quads. It's not very easy. I'm just going to complete, I guess. Obviously, good hand against a loose limper, but my hand's kind of long shotty too. Like, so often I'm just going to end up with something medium strength that's not really value bettable. I'm going to end up with one pair kings a lot, obviously. Table 6 meant to bet this here. And table 5, okay, pretty good spot here. Massive draw. I'm just going to call. I really would like this guy to call as well. End up probably we're chopping here. And then right away I get to fold as the board pairs, and I'm immediately drawing dead. So could have definitely raised the flop there. Such a premium nutted draw, and so many outs. Good spot to just pile money into the pot. But I think it would have been a more clear call if the position of me and this player were reversed. So if there were 3 players left to act behind me, none of them who have called, then it's a very clear spot to just call and try to get some overcalls from loose players who very good chance that they can make a second best hand and pay you off. You know, they can make a lower flush or a straight and just start calling. You know. But there are some situations in PLO multi-way pots when you have like a really premium draw, like I did there, where your best bet is to just start just try to get as many people to the turn as possible for as much money as possible. So I open aces and reasonable board texture here, but it's just so many people in the pot that I don't really feel comfortable betting. And this is kind of an interesting situation. Could raise, you know, this guy's probably calling the flop really wide. This guy's got only one SPR. Call. Can't really in the pot. And this player leads out. I'm just gonna fold. Probably check back. There's not really too much to protect against. No draws. And decent chance he has a hand. You know, 3 kings or better. And he checks it. And it's tempting to value bet, but I'll just show it down. 4 kings over there anyway. Queen Jack 9-7 on the button, table 1. See him playing some full ring here. So a little different of a dynamic. ISO a loose limper with a decent hand in the big blind, flop 2 pair. Good spot to start going for value. Now we've got a really loose limper and a min raise from a loose passive player. This is a good spot to call. Play a pot in position with the button against 2 players that I'm quite eager to play against. Just going to complete. Pretty tempting to ISO the limper again with this hand. So I flop queen high flush draw and a non-nut gut shot. We're 5-way, and I'm not really too inclined to proceed against a bet on this flop. Nor am I do I have any plans to semi-bluff myself. 5-way pot, and I have a potentially dominated draw, some nut outs, so see the turn. And the turn completes my flush, but puts up a possible full house. And we got a smaller sizing here. But he's betting 5-way, so he'd have to be crazy to be bluffing. And if he's value betting, it's with a better hand than mine. So I'm just going to lay it down. Here's a shorter stack player, so potentially maybe a weaker player, in which case it becomes possible that he was bluffing there. You know, he's crazy here. Does have an unorthodox style of play. It's tempting to call based on the pot odds 4-1. Although those are reduced if we're planning to call the river again. Just looking at the whole situation. No hands on him. This is something I do a lot, just sitting at a table, starting games. I think this is a productive habit. Often you get really good games this way. You know, you get heads up with a weaker player. Very profitable, very quick. I'm playing a lot of hands an hour. So table 2, just kings here. But I'm going to bet we're heads up, so my opponent might not have a great hand himself and just fold to my bet. You know, often you find yourself in a situation, heads up, out of position, you have a marginal hand, and a lot of the time your opponent's hand is not that great. So I think I can call here. Not really excited about the spot, but getting some odds and expecting these guys to call behind. Great flop, top set. Basically pile some money into the pot, and then yeah, this is normally a turn you're not too excited about, but here, because I have the flush draw, you know, even if he made a straight, I still have 40-45% equity, whatever. And getting value bet on the river here, you know, he's getting 12-1 or whatever. So I could see him calling with like queens, you know, queen, king 10 or whatever. Probably he had the top end wrap there. So it would be an interesting situation, you know, if it was the 7 not of diamonds. Should I bet? Should I check back? The situations you come into a lot, you know. Probably at that SPR, I should just bet it anyway. But deeper, you have to. Maybe I could bet there, one pair. Deeper, you know, you have to. It's a tough decision, right? You don't want to give a free card to draw. You have some draws, other draws that didn't complete. You don't want to get all your money in at 20% either, right? So it's the great thing about poker is it's all about risk versus reward, and there's risks to every course of action. You know, checking has risks, right? You give a free card, you don't create a bigger pot that you're favored to win. Betting has risks. You know, what happens if they raise you? What happens if they call you? You're bluffing and you lose. So it's poker's a game with rich complexity and a nice variety of decisions to make. So just gotta check that. Hopefully, make sure the recorder's still on. Otherwise I'm just sitting here in a room talking to myself and candidate for the rubber room. 10-6, 5-4, double suited here. The big blind, probably not going to defend, except against like a really small open, min-raise open. Not a great hand by any means. Double suited, yes, but when your cards are so small, your suits are almost irrelevant anyway. You can't really do much with a flush. Two suited kings, table 5. Very strong hand. And a 3-bet here. 10-4-4, pretty good flop. Full house. Not a lot of draws, but this guy obviously pocket 10s here, trapping me. Check back my kings. And not going to semi-bluff here. I'm on the button, so see if I hit it. Make 2 pair. Not bad. Actually, I could get away from this hand. Pods out, fooled. Honestly, there's just no way my hand is good here. Either he made like ace king or ace 4, king 4, we flop pocket 10s. I don't know. Nit fold, but I don't know. Just no way. No way I win that one. So nut flush draw, over pair here. Maybe I should call that. I mean, I don't know. It'd be kind of gross if he was value cutting himself with like. No, there was no underfull on the flop, was there? Oh well. So you see this player here comes in full stack, and right away raising, folding. Only thing to do, snap quit. No point playing heads up against a reg. You know, it's a spot where you don't have an edge. It's a waste of your time, variance, and better to be productive and find a good game instead, where you have an edge, where your opponents are making mistakes. And a heads-up game requires a lot of your focus, right? So when you're playing heads up, you know, very quick, 200 rounds an hour, 150 rounds an hour. Especially at the start, you're trying to discern what type of player your opponent is in order to make more profitable decisions against them in the future. So while all that's going on, you know, you got to sort of neglect your other tables. And that's fine, because nice heads-up game is profitable, and you can sort of autopilot 6-max a bit while you're focusing on the heads-up game. You know, so that's good. There's a lot of money to be made in PLO, and heads-up can be extremely lucrative. A lot of money to be made in heads-up PLO. But there's not really any point in neglecting your other games just so you can play a no edge match against a reg. aside from, I guess, to learn, learn from what they're doing. It'll be all right. So aces here, and 3-bet, I guess, out of position. This is a spot where I would normally just flat, but I think 3-betting is the right decision. Yeah, it's not a ton of my stack. I'm going to be playing out of position, and it's tough, right? But it's got to be the right play. So pretty happy about this flop. Nut flush draw. Hopefully he doesn't have a full house already. Drawing to an ace. I don't think there's anything I can do. We just bet and go with it. 3 SPR. Really bad situation when he flats, but there's nothing I can do, I don't think. I mean, I expect him to show up with like a boat or with a 7 there, like 90% of the time he flats. Maybe not that high, but once you, I mean, what are you going to do? You create a big pot. So that's something I'm trying to do lately is just whenever I have aces, always re-raise pre-flop. It's the right play, strong play. Puts your opponents in tough spots. And worked out there, I guess. So flop, middle set and a gut shot, kind of a nice combination hand here. Probably slight dog to 8-7. Big dog to 9-9. So that's the one real problem with this situation. Most likely my opponent's got like diamonds or something. Ultra dry flop, table 4. Will size down. Accounting for that fact. Here I flop middle pair in the nut flush draw in position, 10 SPR against a reg. So a lot of things going on here, okay? I'm against a reg, so I like to semi-bluff. I'm in position, so I don't like to semi-bluff. But I think my hand is so strong here, and maybe I could get he could get it in with a draw, and I'd be in great shape. Or he's got like weak 2 pair, and I'm in great shape. And so I think that bet stack off is best. I'm gonna flat here. I really want, especially this guy, to come in and call. Got so much potential here to stack him to win a big pot on the right turn. Not a great turn. Puts up a diamond, so killing now. 4 of my outs, 3 of my outs. I already have the 9 of diamonds. And at this point, I'm pretty sure I'm going to fold if he makes a pot size bet. Versus this sizing, I don't think I have a choice. I have to call. So how many nut outs do I have? 3 4s, 2 6, 2 6s, 2 8s, 2 9s, 9 nut outs, I believe. And getting 4-1 and probably a call behind. This guy could raise, if he still played a set, but very unlikely. He's so loose passive, he's only raising a really strong hand. This guy made king queen for sure. But he's so loose passive, that most of his flop continuing range is so weak, and he's so frequently going to call with it on the turn that I'm going to get 5-1, and I've got 9 nut outs, we know 8 cards. So 44, 9 to 35. So about 4 to 1 against improving. And then, the prospect of potentially getting paid big on the river. Obviously, this guy makes any sort of second nut straight, non-nut straight. He will pay me. Just such an absurd play to try the dry ace against a player like this who's so loose passive. And here I've got a hand that plays very poorly against the 3-bet, so just gonna fold it even in position. Doesn't like the game anymore. I don't blame him. Not really enough hands here on anybody to make a top-up decision just yet. That's one thing I like to wait. You got 20, 30 hands on the table, and then you see, are there any really loose players? Is it even worth my money, my time to top up? I think it's facile to say you should always have 100 big blinds. You should always top up for the max. No, your stack size depends on your opponent's relative skill sets and their stack sizes. If all the fish are short and the regs are deep, then I want to be short. If the fish are deep, then I want to be deep, right? I want to cover them. Flop trips here. And this guy could peel with a lot of different hands. Not a great turn. Completes a straight. And against like 9-10, I would have a lot of outs. I'll just check fold the river. Most likely my opponent made a straight or a full house if he bets. If he turned kings into a 2-street bluff, then hats off to him. Kudos to you, sir. On a hand well played. Ooh. Now this looks like a good game. Kings here. Guess I will take a flop. So I say this looks like a good game, and you'll see why in a few seconds. So this Bazigar guy's got like 90 VPIP, and then this guy 50 VPIP. Yeah, 8111, you see. And then these guys are unknown, so that's good too, right? Like, give them an honorary top up even before I'm on the button. So consider yourselves honored, blessed. Just gonna check fold my kings here. Just do 6 flop, reasonable board, but I think in a 5-way pot, an abundance of caution is called for. Yeah, repping like aces, or maybe you flop the deuce. Who knows? It's a mystery. Ace 10 6 4 with a nut suit. He's tilted from that last hand. Just gonna flat here. Versus under the gun raise. So, I mean, my hand's obviously extremely strong, but I feel like I might do better with some loose colors in the pot. I'm just gonna check back. See the turn. Gin flop here, table 2, and reasonable turn does put up a flush draw and a pretty bad river. So check fold. This guy looks pretty loose passive, and give him credit for a boat. I mean, he's calling me on the flop. Seems quite likely. He made a full house. So here now we've got 10 hands, and these guys both look quite loose. Top up to cover. Just gonna check back. Could have kings, I guess. Could have like 6 higher kicker. I don't really expect him to good time to flop the nuts. When is there ever not a good time to flop the nuts? I don't really expect him to continue too often there with like an overpair, but I guess he does. I guess he's got different plans. But it's like a connected board, and 6 X's there. It's a little on the stationy side. Overly obsessed with bluff catching. Ace deuce 5 6 with a nut suit in the small blind. Clear complete. It's these loose colors. And check fold, this air flop. One thing I like to do when multi-tabling, I get no hands going on, is you just look for a hand that's at the river, hence going to showdown, and replay it. Try to get some reads from your opponents. I don't know what sort of read you're supposed to get that a guy played a hand like that, but it's a shot. Flat King Jack 10-9 here on the button, and almost certainly going to end up folding if anybody bets the flop. Check back, 2 pair now. I feel like I'm going to check back the turn if it's checked to me. Not really too confident in my hand. It's possible one of these guys had like aces up, checked the flop, wasn't sure what's going on, checked the turn, wasn't sure what's going on. Could have the best hand here. Probably beat the pre-flop raiser. Counterfeited. give up. Probably lose to something. Definitely a sign of a good game. 5-way limp pot. It's looking quite erratic here over a small sample size, 92.46. Maybe I might switch some of my action to microgaming pretty soon. Check it out. Here they got great rakes anyway. Ace 7-5 deuce in the big blinds. Again, field of loose limpers. Gonna go for a check. Flop ace 5, second nuts. Question is, how frequently does one of these loose limpers have 5-6? Not really sure my hand can stand a raise. Getting about 3-1. You have a gutty. Backdoor hearts. I mean, surely he's got 5-6. That's why he raised me. You have ace 5 himself. Raise to find out where he's at. I don't have the odds to peel for my gut shot. Obviously 3-1. Is it possible that he raised with like a set and he shuts down? I don't know. How do you deal with that situation where you bet the second nuts and do a 5-way pot and somebody min raises you? These are the questions I struggle with on a daily basis. This is my plight as a lowly PLO micro grinder. Hope you get a sense of what I go through every day. These impossible spots, you know. Does he have 4-3? Flop, pre-gin flop on table 4. Nuts with second nut redraw. My goal, to shovel as much money in the pot as quickly as possible. Gonna go for the LOL sizing tell potting it here. Pretty good chance that one of these 3 loose guys feels the need to continue. Well, it's a pretty good turn actually. It gives me a set. Makes my straight second nut. If I get raised here, I will be proceeding under the assumption that my loose passive opponent has ace king. Can't have the king of hearts at least. Can still have ace king with nut hearts, of course. A hand that would now have me in pretty bad shape. Still no way to fold to a turn raise. And Duisburg River. Would have, of course, gone for value, probably half pot on that river. Fold to a raise. Knitting it up here, table 5. Can't really find a hand. Sometimes that's poker. Go a little card dead. You gotta wait for the right situations, wait for the profitable moments. You don't want to force it. Start playing anything too marginal. Give your money away. Speaking of marginal, You can throw away these jacks in the middle position here, first in, five-handed. Would have to play them from the cutoff, no choice. Rags, 6 tables at once playing. It's like the 700 channels and nothing's on. You get 350 hands an hour and all of them rags. Gotta get some big hands, some aces. Double suited. Some rundowns here. Even King's one suit, you know, anything. Play anything at this point. Desperate for cards. Still pretty good games overall. You know, you do want to take a look from time to time, make sure still some fish at the table, some 80-0 types, some 66-0 types. I think the session's going well overall. Feel good about my emotional state anyway. I think I've been winning. I think I've been playing all right. Pretty good. Making reasonable decisions. So really the thing about poker, it's a struggle to just make better decisions than your opponents on a regular basis, to make the right plays. 10-9, 8-6 in the small blind. We'll be able to take a look here. Flopping top pair and a weak flush draw at a position 5-way. I don't think there's any way to peel here. Pretty wary about drawing the 2-pair in a 5-way pot. Very unexcited about a 10-high flush draw in a 5-way pot. I think check and fold is the right play. So very loose limper. Isolate a reasonable hand. And I flop bottom 2. Pretty good spot to check back. Hold a few pots into me. Imagine this guy's potting range, pot donk range. Pretty strong. Turning jacks full now. And I mean, if he had made like a half pot bet here, I would probably just flat, but I'm not gonna lay 13 to 1 or whatever to this guy and infinite to 1 to this guy. So jacks double suited with some connecting sort of cards here. Getting a 3-bet. Hate this spot. Out of position. I think I have to peel though. 8s and 3s, 3-handed. I'm gonna go ahead and lead. Checking back the flop, very suspicious. Checking back the ace-high flop. Turning 10s and 8s now. He would have bet a straight on the turn, so unless he's got 5-6, should be good here. Ace King 10-8 in the big blind after the loose small blind completes. Clear spot to value raise in position. Reasonable hand. And I do flop 3 aces. So extremely locked down board. I'm going to go for a small sizing. No draws to speak of. Turns a jack. Not really a very favorable card. I'm going to bet. 3 aces, king kicker. Still a favorite to be good. And end up making it straight. Which I will check. Kings. Turning now 3 kings and a second nut flush draw. Wow, turning quads. Okay, we'll check. Hopefully now my cutting slow play on the turn pays off. Somebody calls me with a straight. I don't know what to make of this min bet sizing. But or better yet, pocket queens, right? No, no takers. They've seen this flop better checks the turn board pair move before. I take it. Queen Jack 8-5. Going to 2.5 times open the button. If player 3 made his inaugural fold, but no such luck. Open ace queen jack 9, table 3, queen high suit. Get 3-bet potted, and with this sizing, I think there's a very good chance this guy's aces, and maybe not. Maybe folded a very competitive situation here. But I don't know. He's 3-betting for pot out of the big blind into the field. Could have a hand that crushes me. I would have to stack off, I think, on this flop if I had called. So who knows? Maybe save myself a little money. River and quads. Table 4. Good spot to value bet. Got quads. Can't lose. Ace King 7-3. Look at this donkey. And Queen Jack Deuce 9. What are these guys raising on? Air. They got air in their raising. All right. Get in there with my 10-9, 8-7. Clear spot to value raise against the loose button limper. I'm folding premiums, and these guys are racing with air. What's going on here? Okay. Too many flush draws, really. Call it this hand. 2 pair open-ended. Just gotta go back to folding. Boom, gin flop. Full pot sizing, maximum value. Even have a gut shot and the dry ace. Everything you want in a hand here. Except a caller. Alright, I guess that's enough live play video. So hopefully you enjoyed watching me play some poker. And let me know in the comments what you thought about any of the hands, if there were some decisions you have questions about, or you just want to flame, or whatever. Look forward to hearing your comments and insights, and if you have any questions or whatever. Hope you enjoyed the video.